We're going to have a really good show. And it's on the topic of abuse. And the reason for it was recently I had got in touch with a sibling that I haven't talked to in a long time for very good reason. We're just not compatible at all. And the person can't handle an adult conversation on an adult basis. And I don't make fun of anyone. I don't deride anyone. And I get very suspicious and I think, well, what happened to this person? What happened to this person that's their growth and maturity? You know, in many ways, they have a form of maturity because they're over eager to follow the rules per se, you know, to the letter and to the minutia, the jot and tittle, as the word of God would say. But something doesn't seem quite right, never has. And the thing was in the conversation, I had called out the things that I suffered, the violent abuse that I suffered as a child. And because I made a very honest claim against what was done to me, and I didn't speak puppies and clowns and kittens and balloons over my abuser, I was branded a hater. So I was like, I've always been fascinated by psychology. And when I was in school, my teacher, Mr. Barrett, said that I would be a great psychiatrist or psychologist. Another teacher, Mrs. Goldstein, said I would be a great opera singer. And I was told I'd be a great psychologist, great opera singer. And then a third teacher, Miss Lynch, who looked like a doo-doo bug in a sack dress, said, no, he's going to be a garbage collector. So lo and behold, when my father put me out of the house at 15, because I'd been working since I was 14. I went to work full-time when I was 14, making $9 a day, not $9 an hour, $9 a day. And there were men that were raising families on that kind of money. I mean, bread was like 19 cents. Premium gasoline was 26 cents. So $9 a day was average money. It wasn't good money. It was average money. Like if you were a waitress or service person of some sort. So in any case, I was working at Esso station, and there was a guy that picked up the garbage at the hotel across the street, and he offered me $20 a day to work for him. He didn't tell me it was from dark in the morning till dark at night, and that he was absolutely going to beat the crap out of me if I didn't pick up enough garbage and pick it up fast enough. And so In any case, I was getting big and beefy, and it was blamed on me. The reason that I was put out of the house was blamed on me. But in all actuality, it was because my father knew that the next time he sucker punched me in the face and knocked me down the basement stairs and then stand over me and beat the crap out of me, that I was getting the you know, the cobra on my back and everything. I was beefing up, and he was afraid of that. He was afraid. So one time when he had got me real good, I told him, I said, one day you and I are both going to be on the news. And I didn't take it seriously. I was angry at the time. But my father took it to heart, and that's when the clock started ticking, because he's like, I got to get this kid out of my house, you know. So the biggest mistake I made was when he put me out, and my parents went out of the country on vacation because they cared about me so much. Put me out with the clothes on my back. I should have gone next door to my neighbor's house and asked to rent her basement, because I had money. I had $600 on me that I'd saved up. But instead, I went downtown and hung out with the hookers and the drug addicts and the alcoholics and all that other stuff. And God protected me from a lot of that. He protected me from a lot of that. But in any case, in talking to my sibling the other day, she said she'd had panic attacks since being a little girl, 5-year-old little girl. Well, when I was, 1959, I was a toddler, and my father rented a 1959 Chevy Impala Super Sport convertible. And it was an odd color combination. It was robin's egg blue on the outside with a red interior. I've never seen a car like that since then. So off we went to a white only beach back then. The beach was white only. Ironically, I looked up the beach lately, and of course it's not white only, but it's members only. Okay. So we drive up to the beach, and my brother and I are like climbing out on the trunk, and the car had 2 of these antenna on the back, and we're holding on to the antenna like flags. And my father looks up and he says, well, we'll raise the ones that live, you know. No concern about us crawling out onto the trunk of the car as it's going down the highway. So we get to this beach, and it's got a sign white only. And I think it was $6 or $9 to get in, which was, like I said back then, a whole day's pay. It'd be equivalent to going to like King's Dominion nowadays. And we pull up and we get out, and there is no protection anywhere. No umbrellas, no outbuildings, no nothing. And so when we finally, and my parents made a day of it. They made a day of it. And by the time we got back in the car. By the time we got back in the car, my brother and I literally had boils all over our bodies from the sunburn. So, in any case, my mother wrapped my brother and I up in clean white sheets to soak up the goop coming off of our wounds, and smeared Noxema cold cream all over us and wrapped us in clean white sheets. So the next day, my brother was sitting out on the back porch, very quiet child, trying not to draw attention to himself. I was the boisterous one. My father almost had to beat me to death to put me in line. But that's because I was used to all of the abuse and the alliteratives and everything. So, and my father had been horribly abused as a child. So you have to stop the lineage of abuse, is what I'm saying. And I feel in my life that that by the grace of God, he kept me from causing hurt, harm, danger, and loss in the lives of other people. But my brother was sitting on the sofa on the back porch, one of those metal sofas with plastic cushions, and he was badly sunburned. My father came out and he took a bottle of Old Spice cologne. This is 1959 now, and I remember it like it was yesterday. And he took the Old Spice cologne, he dumped it in his hand, and then he slapped it right on my brother's sunburn, on his chest and his stomach. And my brother went out of the room screaming like an old woman. He threw his sandwich up in the air and ran out, very distasteful. So, like I said, I was a toddler. And he turns to me, he's like, "Come here, boy." I'm like, "No." "Come here, boy." "No." "I'm your father." "Yes." "Come here, boy." "No." And I wouldn't have anything to do with him at that point. So I kind of ran out past him. And whenever he came near me, I wouldn't let him near me. And that made him angry. That he was paying for a kid that wasn't returning any love. And he had this blasted cat. And he and the cat would sit together on his easy chair. And both of them will look down at me like, "Aren't I jealous of our mutual admiration society?" And I look back like, "No, doesn't bother me a bit." Deep down it did. It hurt me when neighbors said, "Well, your father doesn't seem to be very in touch with his boys, to say the least." Oh, he was in touch, all right. He was in touch. But the point I'm trying to make is getting back to the original topic of abuse is, and this person suffers from what I call, she just says panic attacks. Well, that's not logical. If you've had panic attacks since you were 5 years old, there's either a physical or a psychological reason, like maybe your heart's not pumping enough oxygen, or some other defect, or more than likely there was some abuse that was never brought to light, never discussed. And psychologically, she's holding that abuse down. It's like trying to hold a beach ball under the water at a swimming pool. Eventually, it's going to pop up. And it takes a lot of energy to keep it pushed down under the water, to ignore it. That's what happened with me most of my life, in trying to ignore the abuse. But in any case, that's going to be the topic this week, is what's called Stockholm syndrome. And that's where the abused person idolizes, for some reason, they idolize the person that has abused them. So look it up, Stockholm syndrome. And that's going to be what we talk about for the rest of the week. Pop out.